So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our evening sutra lecture. So, we will begin shortly with the Dharma request. 你可以放这边。你要不要试试看你的声音，讲一讲话？
阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛。
这个你圈了，等一下，这样子。
阿弥陀佛。
可以 ，OK， 可以。
Test. Amitabha.
Yes. Amitabha. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Amitabha.
Amitabha.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'll begin our Dharma request. So, people can please place your palms together. You can invite the presence of the three jewels. 现在请三宝来。
恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，心赞妙法论，教导我们如何了生超世离苦得乐，殊胜无生。 will the Sangha regret virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and emperor and death and quickly realize none but.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Whom is to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo Saranto
Sujedoye Alahadi Samya Sambuddhose.
Namo Satanto Sujedoye Arahati Samya Sambuddhose.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难
遭遇。我今
见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, all good and wise friends online and present here, Amitabha. Welcome to our evening sutra lecture on the Infinite Life Sutra. You just heard our novice monk, novice Qingliang, do our Dharma request. He's now back, and people remember his familiar voice doing our Dharma requests. So we're very happy to have him. So 诸佛菩萨、上人、各位法师、各位善知识，阿弥陀佛。今晚我们继续研究《无量寿经》，我们也可以欢迎我们的清凉师回来，这可能熟悉的声音来请法。So tonight we'll begin by reciting Amitabha's Buddha's name, like usual. It's a chance to invite Amitabha, Buddha's presence, into our hearts. You could say to receive the compassionate care and warm, radiant light on our bodies and our hearts. So 我们来念阿弥陀佛的圣号，可以让阿弥陀佛的慈悲愿力来摄受我们，然后这个光明也可以照到我们的身体。好。南无阿弥陀佛，南无阿弥陀佛，南无阿弥陀佛， 弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛。
可以了，可以。好诸佛菩萨、仙公上人，在座法师，还有我们在座前面的佛友，还有线上的佛友，大家阿弥陀佛。
So all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, Dharma Masters, and all good and wise friends, Amitabha.
今天是2月17号，农历也是正月17号，就是元月17号了。然后我们大家在伯克利这边，我们来研究佛说《阿弥陀经》。那我们还是在算经文的76中文，然后77是英文
77
对，然后我们会加一些78的这个经文，前面的一些经文。
So today we'll continue to investigate the Infinite Life Sutra. We're on pages 76 and 77.
76页的经文呢，是在阿难彼佛国土。我们上次讲是故其国名曰极乐，所以我们开始会进入极乐世界了所以这个就是今天我们开始还是在讲这个极乐世界的情况。这个佛跟阿难来告诉阿难的这个经文。那我们大家一起来先读中文一遍，然后再读英文。
So we're on the fourth line from the bottom on page 76. It says Anan. So we'll start from reading there. And on the English side, on page 77, we start with the word Ananda.
好，我们合掌，我们大家一起念，节省时间。好，阿难，彼佛国度诸往生者，具足如是清净色身，诸妙音声，神通功德，所处宫殿衣服饮食，众妙花香，庄严之具。有第六天自然之物，若遇施食，七宝应齐，自然在前，金银琉璃，抽具玛瑙。
对不起，我不在这边了。砗磲玛瑙，珊瑚、琥珀、明月、珍珠。如是众钵，随意而至，百味饮食，自然盈满。虽有此食，实无实则，但见色闻香，亦以为食，自然饱足。身心柔软， 无所谓早，是以化去，是智复现。
好，英文。
Okay, we're on page 77, 79. Okay. Ananda, those who are born in that Buddha land possess pure physical forms, wondrous voices, spiritual powers, and meritorious virtue. Their palaces, clothes, food, drink, and the many wondrous flowers, incense, and adornments are comparable to what spontaneously appears in the sixth heaven. When they would like to eat, bowls made from the seven treasures will spontaneously appear before them. Bowls of gold, silver, Vaidurya, grand clamshells, agate, coral, amber, and bright moon pearls spontaneously appear according to their wishes. These bowls are filled with food with hundreds of different flavors. Although the food materializes, they do not consume it. They become spontaneously full by simply seeing, smelling, and thinking about the food. With a relaxed body and peaceful mind, they remain unattached to flavors. Upon finishing, the food disappears and later reappears for the next meal.
好，所以呢，今天我们还是在讲极乐世界的这个情况，这个极乐世界的国度的所有往生的人呢，依照这个经文呢，他就是说，往生的人呢，他都记住了这个清净的这个色身啊，还有种种的美妙的声音，像这个美妙的声音呢，这个是什么声音呢？当然就是鸟的声音啦，还有那个念佛声啊、念法、念真啊，这些声音呢，美妙的声音，那边都是可以听得到，还有一些神通，在那里的人呢，他都是记住这个清净的声以外呢，还有美妙的声音，还有神通的这个功德、殊胜的功德，那边他都是记住的。
So here it talks about how Ananda, or the Buddha's telling Ananda that those who are born in the Buddha land of Amitabha Buddha possess pure physical forms, wonderful voices, spiritual powers, and meritorious virtue.
所以呢，那因为有这些殊胜的这个功德呢，所以那边的这些宫殿啦，衣服啦，就是住在那里的地方，我们那边都是就没有像我们这边的房子了，就是宫殿了。所以呢，那边所穿的衣服啦、饮食啦，还有香花呢，这些呢，庄严来做这些算庄严的这个器具呢，这些呢，就是好像是第六天这个自然所化现的这个物品。
So in this Pure Land, because of the meritorious virtue of all these beings, they have palaces, clothes, food, drink, and many wondrous flowers, incense, and adornments that are comparable to that of what spontaneously appears in the sixth heaven. So you can imagine that there people don't live in the kind of simple houses that we have here in the Saha world, but actually very adorned palaces.
那这个经文还在讲，就是说那边的众生呢，就是往生去那里的人呢，他要想吃东西的时候呢，这个七宝应器呢， 自然就在它的前面。这个七宝我们知道，就是后面也有讲到，就是金银琉璃、车稷玛瑙，珊瑚琥珀，还有这个明月珍珠、明月珠啊，这样子的。
So when they wish to eat, then bowls of the 7 treasures spontaneously appear before them. And as we know, the treasures are listed next. It's basically gold, silver, viduria, grand clamshells, agate, coral, amber, and bright moon pearls. These bowls are made from all these different treasures.
像这个七宝，我们以前也讲过很多次，我们也有详细的来解释，所以今天我们就不再解释这个七宝的这个项目。
So we've talked about the 7 treasures before, so we will not go into that tonight.
像这个，因为它这些七宝就是硬器，就是吃饭的这些钵器呢，它随时如是众钵呢，随意二字，就是你要吃饭的时候，它马上就到来，这样子，随你的意念、意识来，马上就出现。
So food appears in these bowls according to your wish. The moment you think about it and wish it, the food materializes.
当然，这个它这个饭硬器这个钵里面呢，它是百味众食。所谓百味，就是所有当然不止100味啦，就是你想要吃什么东西，它里面的东西都有，而且自然盈满，它是自然的，都是在里面盛满着这个在钵子里面，你可以来使用。
So this food appears, spontaneously, and it's really delicious of various kind of flavors. You can say the hundreds of flavors, different flavors, or this food is maybe even more than that. It's just whatever you wish to eat, that food will appear.
虽然是这个东西都出现了，然后里面百味啦都有了，实际上呢，那里因为它是化身的，实际上呢，它没有像我们的这个身体，要吃东西身体才会饱。其实它是讲意念的，意念意识，就是你用以意为食。所以呢，它虽然有进食，它只是看看颜色出现，闻香味，它是意念为食的，它自然就能够饱了，就这样子。
So although the food appears spontaneously, they actually don't have to eat it to be full. All they have to do is to smell it or see it or think about it, and because they are born from transformation, their transformation body, so they don't actually eat the solid food. All they have to do is eat by thought. So they just come in contact with the food through thoughts, and then they're full.
所以呢，它自然饱了，而且呢，它这个身心呢，那里的众生，那里的人呢，都是身心都是非常柔软，都是没有被像执着在味道，被味道执着着没有。
So these people, when they're eating, are extremely relaxed and peaceful, unattached to flavors.
所以呢，那这个它以意为食了之后呢，它要化掉，它马上就化掉。然后你要再想吃，它等到你想吃的时候，它马上又出现这样子。
So it disappears after you finish eating, and later when you wish to eat again, it naturally appears.
所以呢，我们从这个经文来讲呢， 就是这个去到那里往生去极乐世界那里的人呢，他都是非常清净色身，都是记住清净色身，还有可以那边也都是记住众妙声音，因为呢，他这个为什么会有这样子的那个殊胜功德，也就是法藏比丘呢，他发48愿，那因为前面我们讲过发48大愿呢，它里面就有发愿的这个经文在里面。
So from the sutra, it describes those who go to the Pure Land will have this pure body and have a wondrous voice. And how does this come about? If you were to look at the sutra in the beginning, Dharma master or Bhikshu Fadzang, he made 48 great vows. And so in the vows, it's just to have people have this kind of marvelous body.
这个呢是在这个发愿48愿中呢第3愿，就是说去到他发第3愿呢，他是说往生去那里的呢，他身都是金色的，都是所谓金色，就是当然就是清净色身啦，金色的。还有第4愿呢，它的形色都是相同，大家都是非常清净，非常美丽这样子的这个没有什么丑的现象啊，没有。
So if you look at the third vow of Amitabha Buddha, he said all those who are born in his land will have bodies the color of gold. And so this represents this purity, this kind of pure body. And then the fourth vow, he says that all those who are born in his land will share the same appearance, this kind of beautiful appearance. There's no ugliness.
就是从今天的经文，还有我们比对这个48大愿呢，这个就是在证明这个法藏比丘呢，他已经成就了他这个大愿，所以有极乐国，成就的这个极乐国，也就是说阿弥陀佛的极乐世界。
So this, you could say, this here explanation by the Buddha is certification or verification that Bhikshu Fadzang's vows have been accomplished. That, here in Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land, you see these manifestations.
Yeah. 所以呢，这个法藏比丘呢，他发愿，在这个经文我们以前也有读过，这个法藏比丘他发愿完以后呢，然后呢，当时呢，六地震动了，然后呢，天雨妙花来洒在这个法藏比丘上面，而且呢，这个空中呢有自然的这个来赞叹这个声音，就说你必定可以成无上正觉，你必定可以成无上境界，就成佛，你就是后来的这个我们在常常每天念的南无阿弥陀佛，可以成这个阿弥陀佛这样子。
So when Bhikshu Fadzang made these vows on the spot, right then, the ground began to shake, the earth began to shake in 6 different ways. And flowers rained down from the sky. In an empty space, you could hear praises of Bhikshu Fadzang, saying that he in the future will realize Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. He will become a Buddha and become the Buddha we know now is Amitabha Buddha.
Yeah. 所以呢，好，这个就是经文的。今天我们再来看经文，它里面有提到这个第6天啊，第6天呢，它这个是在讲异界的第6天。我们这个异界的第6天呢，叫做他化自在天。
So if we want to go into this sutra text some more, we see a term being used, the sixth desire heaven. The sixth desire heaven 是他化 transformation of others, self-mastery heaven.
算异界的这个最高天
It's the
啊。
highest heaven in the desire realm.
Yeah， 那我们知道，这个异界、色界、无色界是叫做三界嘛，我们有这个三界，然后呢，它总共有28天嘛。
So we know that there's 3 realms, the desire realm, which we're in, the form realm, and then the formless realm, and then there's 28 heavens in total.
那它这个经文有提到像异界的这个自然之物啊，你跟他看哦，第6天异界的第6天，它是修十善业，然后修忍辱就可以去那里当天人。
So the food in the Pure Land, and also in the sixth desire heaven, spontaneously appear. How do you end up becoming a deva in the sixth desire heaven? You cultivate the 10 wholesome deeds as well as patience, and then you can be reborn in the sixth desire heaven.
所以呢，这个异界的第6天，要跟极乐世界这个天人比起来呢，当然因为异界还是在娑婆世界这个异界里面，那要比起极乐世界的天人呢，那是相差很多，因为这个极乐世界的天人依照或前面还有我们的这个读过的经典呢，它是功德非常庄严，而且今天有讲到它有神通自在的。
So if we talk about the desire realm heaven, the sixth desire realm heaven, compared to the Pure Land, still the sixth desire heaven is in samsara, and so it really can't compare with the Pure Land. The Pure Land is just that so much better.
Yeah， 所以呢，对于这个神通呢，因为它有神通功德，这个那边的极乐世界呢，那个跟我们异界的是刚才讲了非常不同。那我们身为异界的，我们来稍微了解一下神通呢。这个相公上人呢，他对神通的一些看法，我们也可以来知道相公上人的看法是怎么样子。
So in terms of spiritual powers, also there's a big difference within the Pure Land and what we have in samsara. And so we will maybe investigate some of Master Hua's descriptions of spiritual powers.
Okay.
I actually want to share a little bit before we move on to spiritual powers around the appearance. And I think if you want another comparison, the appearance that we have in this human realm with our bodies compared to the gods in the sixth desire heavens is probably also incomparable. Their beauty and their radiance goes far beyond what we look like in our kind of, maybe say, more gross physical bodies. But I think it's an actually interesting reflection because so much of our lives is caught in trying to beautify the body, making it look attractive. And I think it actually, in samsara, in our world, leads to a great deal of anxiety, in fact. We try to beautify and adorn our bodies, often wishing to get attention, perhaps from the opposite gender, or somebody we're trying to impress, or we just felt this is the only way I can really be accepted, is I have to make my body look a certain way to be okay. And at some point in our life, we learn that. And there's different standards of beauty based on different cultures. For men, there's each culture has a particular maybe form that they want men to look into. And then for women, you often have that as well. And then kind of everything in between. And we can spend our lives just trying to fit this kind of identity, this kind of form. And we can't do it, which often is the case, because in our society, there are just so many images that are placed before us to tell us what beauty is, that we begin to feel that somehow we're not enough, that we need to be more beautiful to be okay. And that's actually a lot of suffering. 所以我想你看那个6天跟我们人的这个身体的这个可以说美貌呢是也可以说不能比的。那个天人的美丽比我们人的美丽是可以说好太多了。他们是非常光明的，我们人是死死板板的。但是我是想，你看我们这个人类呢，每个我们社会呢，可以说我们花很多时间在想要把我们的身体做很美丽，想要妆啊等等啊，或者我们可以每个社会都有一个像一个标准一样，一个标准的一个美丽，男人啊或女人啊都有这个标准，然后我们可能就要把自己的身体呀变成是这样子的样子。就可以感觉上这样别人就可以接受我，或者会喜欢我，或者不会排斥我，或者我自己要接受我自己要一个样子。所以可以说，真正在娑婆世界，很多时候我们的身体的美妙变成一个痛苦，变成一个地方我们非常痛苦。But that's only one way we can look at it. This mindset of competition and trying to impress or seek attention. I think another way, which my sense is the Pure Land's pointing to, is a beauty that comes from merit and virtue, and from goodness, and from pure vows and intentions. That it's a beauty that we don't have to seek after. It's a beauty that just comes naturally from our pure nature. And I think this is actually a very interesting orientation for us, because one is seeking beauty outside, and the other is discovering the beauty inside. And this kind of beauty often might not be so shiny and attractive. It might not, cause people when you walk by, they turn their heads and they look at you and their eyes follow you because you're very attractive. Rather, this kind of beauty, when people see you, they feel cool and peaceful inside. They feel safe. They feel joyful. Right? This is a different kind of beauty. That's why when we say adorned, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have many adornments. Their beauty goes beyond this kind of mundane beauty that's just attractive. Their beauty reminds us of a deeper inner beauty. And so when we see that, people's hearts calm down and something inside recognizes it. That's truly beautiful. And something deep inside goes, I recognize that. 所以我想这个美丽呢，一个是从这样子的方式，是像个求的心，一个竞争的心，想要比别人美丽，想要得到别人的注意，或者想要得到社会的同意，还是怎样。所以我们很多这个人类就变成这样子的一个方式来看我们的身体，可以说这样是很痛苦的。但是我想我们可以用另外一个角度来看，我想极乐世界这样子解释我们的身体是一个方向。就怎么说呢？这个美丽呢，不是从外来求的，是从内心的这个功德、道德、十善的净愿、清净的愿力、清净的心 就自然而然发出来的内心的这个美丽。我想这个内心的美丽跟这个外来求的美丽可能有个不同。外来求的美丽，很多时候就看到有人就这样子的美丽呢，你看，他们有人一看到他们呢，就有人起了一个贪心了。哦，那个人这么漂亮，就眼睛都是盯着他们，看他们走。它只是一个贪的这个想要，我想不只是接近，想要可能得到那个人，因为我觉得太漂亮了。但是这个清净的这个内心的美丽呢，我想很多时候我们看到不是会起一个贪心，是起一个什么心呢？起一个尊重，一个快乐，一个平静的心的这个作用。比方说，我们看我们后面有3个佛像，你看这个3个佛像，就是看他们的面孔啊，不是让我们要贪心啊，就是他们这么我想中文可能他说这么帅，你不能听这样的佛说这么帅，他们是很庄严。为什么呢？是因为他们，你看到他们，你就记得我自己内心也有这样子的美丽，可以这么的清净，可能这么的平静跟快乐，这也是我的本分，就提醒我们就可以静下来。所以我想这个极乐世界这个美丽呢，是这个比较深的美丽，是内心出发的美丽这样子表现出来。So I think that's the beauty in the Pure Land, is this inner beauty, not a beauty that comes from competition and fighting, but a beauty that comes from tuning into our true nature. So I just want to share a little bit about, I think the first one, I think it's very important because in our world, so much time and effort goes into beautifying our body, and we sometimes beautify it in a way that actually ends up creating more suffering for ourselves. 所以这样讲一点点，因为觉得很多时候我们把很多时间放在我们身体上，但是我们它美丽的方式呢，反而没有真正得到快乐，得到更多的痛苦。所以我想如果我们对的方向，就可以真的得到快乐。好，有神通。
好。也要讲到神通。以前我们知道佛教有6种神通嘛，对不对？他心通啊，天眼通、天耳、神足、宿命、漏尽通。那这个最重要就是漏尽通，因为我们佛教才有的，因为我们有这个修行才能够得到漏尽，那其他外道是没有的。
So in Buddhism, we know that there are 6 kinds of spiritual powers. The first one is sometimes translated as clairvoyance, or Jing Fosher says just the ability to read other people's minds, mind reading, we say. The second one is maybe clairvoyance, the ability to see celestial vision. The third one is clairaudience. Audience, I think, is celestial hearing, so we can hear up into the heavens and down to the hells.
Yeah.
Ability to see past lives, so the kind of very good memory that goes all the way back to past lives. That's 4 of them. And then the ability to have complete spiritual mastery. And this one, they often talk about the various transformations of the arhat, being able to fly in the air, to manipulate the elements. These are different kinds of spiritual abilities. That's 5. But in Buddhism, we really emphasize the 6th spiritual ability, and this is the spiritual power of freedom from outflows, meaning we no longer have any afflictions. We no longer have a self. We actually are completely free, and this is the freedom of an arhat.
所以佛教徒像释迦牟尼佛时代的几乎那些大弟子，他们都有神通的，而且他们大概目犍连用的比较多，其他的这个释迦牟尼佛是跟他们讲不要用神通这样子。
So if you look at the great disciples of the Buddha, many of them had spiritual abilities, spiritual powers. The foremost in spiritual abilities was Venerable Mahamoggallana. And in certain cases, he manifested his spiritual abilities. But Shakyamuni Buddha generally advised the monks and the monastics not to use their spiritual abilities, not to kind of show off.
所以呢，像那个我们的佛祖啊，这些佛祖们啊，你不管是阿难一直到佛祖，就是阿难算二祖嘛，第一组是大家是阿难第二，然后第三是桑那和修，还有一直到达摩祖师，他们都是有神通的，而且到他们最后要离开的时候，他都会显神通给大家来臣服，甚至于他就显神通，然后就化掉。所以今天呢，我想我们要来分享我们的三祖，第三祖，桑那和修，他也到最后显神通。
So the various disciples of the Buddha, from the Buddha on down, kind of had spiritual abilities. So for instance, the Buddha clearly had many spiritual abilities, and the first patriarch, Mahakashyapa, was also very accomplished in spiritual abilities, and the second patriarch was Venerable Ananda, and then the third patriarch, I'm not sure 他的第三个是叫什么名字？
桑那和修。
三那和修。
桑那和修。
I wonder if somebody wants to type in the actual name of. Oh, I don't have my device here, but the third patriarch is Sanna Hesho, who's 有吗？
看看我不知道那个。
Sanna Hesho. We can look it up.
有没有看？
I don't know if somebody wants to put in the Fo Yuan Buddha vows. Sanna Hesho, which is the third patriarch, all the way down to the Bodhidharma, they all manifest as spiritual abilities. So I want to tell a story about the third patriarch, Sanna Hesho.
好，讲这个三祖以前，我们仙公上人，我刚才有提到仙公上人，他对神通的看法呢，因为有弟子跟他问啊，就是仙公上人在的时候，有弟子跟他问说：“请问师父啊，对这个神通啊，你有什么看法？那你本人有没有神通？”
So a person， 可能我不知道是弟子问弟子问他的，还是一个？
弟子问他的。
Okay, so a disciple asked Master Hua, Master Hua, what is your understanding of spiritual powers? And do you have spiritual powers?
三公上人他答：“那什么神通？我连鬼通都没有，不要说神通了。”
So Master Hua's response is, what do you mean talk about spiritual powers? I don't even have ghostly powers, much less spiritual powers.
Yeah. 那我不讲神通呢，而是在讲这个智慧。
So he says, I'm not talking about spiritual powers, I talk about wisdom.
凡是你有灵感呢，或者是知道些什么事啦，就是说，他这个都是智慧的作用啊，并不是什么神通啊。
So he says, it doesn't matter you have any kind of lingan, maybe some extraordinary sense or perception, or if you know something, know this or that, that's kind of maybe not something people normally understand, extrasensory perception. This is just the wisdom's function. It's not something so like spiritual powers.
他说那个像真的要讲那个神通啊，是不可思议的，是不可以想象的。
Says if you truly talk about spiritual abilities, it's inconceivable, beyond your imagination.
假如你好好的守规矩啊， 时间久了，守规矩当然是守规矩修行了。时间久了，自然就会有智慧。
So he says, by upholding the rules, by following the rules, and cultivating for a long time, you naturally will have wisdom.
那神通呢，对于这个修道的方面来讲呢，是真的是一个微乎其微的一个雕虫小技，就是根本就不足道，根本就不用提它，因为其实你修道修得好，自然就会出现的，这个不用就是一个雕虫小技，一个技巧就对了，很小的技巧。
I don't quite understand that word, but okay, it says, so when you talk about spiritual powers, when you really talk about it within cultivation, it's really a small matter. It's a small scale. It doesn't actually count for much. It's 根本不足道. It really doesn't even not something you need to talk about when you're cultivating the Tao. It's just kind of the secondary thing. Because if you truly cultivate it's just naturally the spiritual powers are just naturally part of the process.
所以呢，这个有了神通没有什么了不起。真正有修行的人呢，他不注重这个东西的。
So it says the spiritual powers is no big deal. Those who truly cultivate don't really think about these spiritual powers.
好，我们想来讲
那个神通，讲so that I think actually is a very good example of a skillful response for spiritual powers, because I think, especially in Asia, many people really look to spiritual powers as a way to bolster their faith in the Dharma. And I think that spiritual powers is very important. And I think Master Huaz often has a reputation for having a lot of spiritual powers. So 像刚刚那个上神这样子回答，我想是蛮有意思的，因为我想比较少在西方，但是我看到在东方，很多人就会比较注重神通，以为神通就变成是可以真正信的人，就是因为他们有神通。我看那个很多时候甚至于我们在法种里面，很多人是因为上人有很多故事，他是用神通，他们觉得上人是真的可以相信的，因为他是神通。但是你看这个上人呢，他现在在解释的，我想他是想要让人这个心呢，从一个注重神通的概念，反而改成一个修道的概念。因为我们从神通来说，就变成一个求的心了。刚刚就一样的，我们想说要求这个美丽，我们求美丽呢，求来求去挣更多苦。神通是一模一样的。我们去求神通呢，想要说开眼啊，或者有这个他心通啊，就是开始求，觉得这个非常了不起的事情，一直去求，找人有这个能力，反而我们就走火入魔，走错的路，反而最后对不起，最后更痛苦了。反而呢，如果我们从就是刚刚跟那个美丽的一样的道理，知道这个神通不是了不起的事情，但是是在内心的这个自信的来去用功，我们这个神通就是我们的这个内心的美丽，就自然而然就出现了。所以我们好好修道，好好持戒，好好打坐，或者用功在我们法门上，久而就有智慧，久而就有这个神通的能力。但是我们不是因为了求这个神通，这个神通就是变成一个自然出现的一件事情。所以想这个方向，我们是要往对的方向来修行。这个神通这个概念，我想也是个对的这个概念来看。So I think we need to focus on the right way of looking at spiritual powers. I think Master Huang makes a very good point that we can often seek spiritual powers outside, especially in Asia, and rather we don't realize that the spiritual abilities are naturally in our nature. We don't have to seek outside. Just like when we talked about beauty, looking for beauty outside. And we seek, and in the end we end up in a lot of suffering. Actually, seeking spiritual powers can actually end up even worse than seeking beauty. We can actually end up in a cult or a very difficult place. Rather, if we can realize that these spiritual abilities are just naturally there in our nature, and we cultivate the Tao, hold precepts, work at our Dharma method, really develop wisdom and compassion, then these spiritual abilities naturally begin to function on their own. Not something we have to seek outside. Okay.
好，我们想这个讲这个神通方面呢，就我们要讲这个桑那和修，
三那和修，
桑那和修，那他这个他是那个摩图罗国人，他这个当然就是印度那边啦，他姓比舍德，他的姓叫做比舍德，这个都是讲中文可能有另外
梵文的，
因为呢，然后他在这个母亲的胎里面呢，一样的6年，跟那个罗睺罗一样的在6年，然后呢，他应瑞而生呢，他就是说他出生的时候呢，非常的祥瑞出现，这些他出生的时候，后来呢，他出家来修仙道，他也是一样的在雪山，我们释迦牟尼佛也在雪山那边修道，因为呢，阿难要入灭呢，阿难要入灭。山河6地震动就是一样的，出现这些。
Okay, so here we talk a little bit about this. Sometimes we also changed word some patriarch to ancestor, because in current modern times, often the word patriarch has a negative connotation. It often kind of references the sense of men being oppressive. So what I'll maybe use the word third ancestor, who was, you could say, transmitted the lineage from Venerable Ananda to him, and his name is Shan Na He Xiu, and he was born in a place Motilo, maybe that's Magadha, I'm not sure, but he had a name Seduo, Bi-Seduo. His name was Bi-Seduo, and this is before he became the third patriarch or third ancestor. And he was in his mother's womb for 6 years, similar to Venerable Rahula. And he was very kind of proper. When he came out and was born, his appearance was very proper. And he was many auspicious signs when he was born. And later, he left home, or he kind of went to cultivate the way, and he followed the path of the rishis, or sometimes they say in Chinese the immortals, but the rishis, the kind of ascetic practices of the various rishis to kind of transform the body. And he went to Snow Mountain, Xueshan. This is also where the Buddha went to cultivate. And then later, when Venerable Ananda entered Nirvana, the six, the earth, the rivers, the great earth, the mountains, the rivers, the great earth, all shook in 6 different ways. Basically, everything shook.
Yeah, 因为他阿难就是阿难他也是要入涅槃嘛，所以就山河大地震动。然后真者之道呢，他就跟着真者就跟500这个仙人呢，他去理这个阿难 去跟阿难尊者来礼佛了，礼阿难了，来跪拜了。
So when Venerable Ananda was entering nirvana, the earth shook, and these 500 rishis came to pay their respect to Venerable Ananda.
然后呢，他跟阿难请求他说，我想跟来请求长老，就是阿难啦，就是说希望说能够来证到这个佛法，然后我希望能够来垂度，就是希望说你能够来度脱我，然后我想要来学习佛法，来证佛法这样子。
这个是三和
对他讲的，他自己
三那和修
来请求的。
这是跟500个这个仙人一起来的。
去礼。对了，500。
So when Venerable Ananda entered nirvana, 500 rishis came to visit him, and this Venerable Shan Hasho, who was a rishi at the time, asked Venerable Ananda and made a Dharma request saying, Elder Venerable, I wish to realize the Buddha Dharma. Please teach me, and you could say maybe the word save me, the kind of really teach me the way.
所以呢，这个阿难呢，然后他就在恒河上把恒河的那里化为金地，就是来变成金色的这个地呀，其实他这个讲仙空少年，他是讲是一种那就是没有水，就是恒河没有水，就是变成金地。这个变呢，它是意识，不是永久的，是一种变化相，不是实在的。
你说他把那个恒河的水不见了？
对，把它变成金地，然后就
水就不见了。
不见这个有水啊，只有见到金色的地了。那仙空少年讲了，这个是一种变相而已啦，不是真实的啦。
So Venerable Ananda transformed the Ganges into the sand into gold, and the water you could not see the water. And this Master Hua says, this wasn't like a real thing he did forever. It was a temporary kind of you could say visualization, a kind of temporary shift.
然后呢，他就跟这个第三组桑那和修来讲他的大法。他跟他讲法，就是他怎么讲呢？他说，以前呢，如来用这个正法眼藏来护给大迦叶，然后大迦叶来转护给我，然后我今天呢来转护给你，这样子。
So the Venerable Ananda then spoke to Dharma, telling the third ancestor Shan Na He Shio, saying that before Shakyamuni Buddha passed the proper Dharma treasury eye to Venerable Mahakashyapa, and Venerable Mahakashyapa passed it to me, and now I will pass it to you.
所以呢，这时候这个三那和修他得法了以后呢，他后来他就去他降服2个火龙啊做一个，然后他自己就建造了这个修行的这个宫殿，然后转大法轮。
So when after the third ancestor realized the Dharma, he went and you could say subdued 2 fire dragons, and then he went to the pure palace to teach turn the great Dharma wheel.
所以他就在那转大法轮以后呢，然后后来他就护法给优婆吉多，我们也以前有讲过优婆吉多的故事，你知道吗？他把那个一个老太婆放门油啊，就是他去看那个老太婆100多岁的佛陀的时候的一个
老太婆
老比丘尼啦，
叫这个名字啊？
不是优婆吉多，
优婆吉多去看那个老比丘尼。
那个故事啊，我们以前也有讲过啊。他推门啊，他慢慢推，但是他还是把他那个油跑出来了。他说以前的佛陀时代的那个油都不会跑出来，但是佛陀吉多很小心机，也去看他门推了，就把油因为他放了一个那个钵的油在门口那里，
在门上面，
不是
那个油掉到头上，
旁边在门后面。
嗯，
这个表示说还不够仔细啦。佛法里面啊，佛的时代的这个弟子都非常小心，做什么事情非常仔细。那一直传到100年以后呢，甚至于200年，就更没有这些注意了。像优婆吉多，他就去拜访他，就跟他好像是跟他训话一样。所以这个就是优婆吉多，就是目前就传法给他这个。
所以他传给优婆吉多啊。
三祖啊。
三祖传给优婆吉多。
对。
So the third ancestor passed the Dharma on to Venerable Yopo Jizuo. And we also told his story before about how at one point there was, I think, an elder bhikshuni who had some oil next to the door. And when Yopo Jizuo came in, and was opening the door, he spilled some of the oil. And he was trying to be very careful, but still he spilled some. And the elder bhikshuni said, look at this younger generation. During the older generation, the disciples of the Buddha wouldn't spill this oil, but this younger generation does. So just to the story, just to kind of emphasize how careful and meticulous and detailed the early disciples were, and how over as the years went by, people became less and less careful. 像我们现在这人更比不上了，我们这个油都看不到了，就自己把这个油都完全翻过来了。I think in the probably current times now we're probably so distracted， 我们就看我们的 cell phone， 就打开了，不知道在做什么。We're probably so lost in our cell phones that we open the door and knock over the oil. We don't even know we knocked over the oil. Modern time.
所以呢，他这个三祖就传给优婆吉多，就优婆吉多算第4位传法人嘛。所以呢，后来这个三那和修呢，他就闻在济边国那里象白山上呢，后来他就之后呢，他就显18神通啊，显18遍神通，在天上滚了18遍的这些神通呢，然后就火光三昧，自己就把它烧掉了，自己用火光三昧就往生了就对了呀。
So after the third ancestor passed on the Dharma to the fourth ancestor, the Venerable San No He Xiu, he went into some mountain. 哪个山啊？是白山 White Mountain.
济边国的这个
济边国
象白山
is an elephant white mountain, and there he manifested the 18 transformations of an arhat, these kind of various spiritual abilities, and then in the air he manifested fire, the samadhi of fire, and he actually basically cremated his body in midair. And this is how he entered nirvana. So
好
pretty spectacular.
这个就
So
是一
ancient
个
fireworks in ancient times. 所
yeah
以以前的大火炮，火炮吗？叫火炮吗 ？Firework
这不是火炮了，
叫什么
鞭炮了，
鞭炮，鞭炮。
firework，
我想可能比
鞭炮
我们现在鞭炮更惊讶。它不需要什么那个科技的这个怎么说那个艺术方面的东西，他自己就可以完全变出来。He doesn't need any kind of modern day technology stuff. He can actually just manifest it from his own spiritual abilities. So that's called real
没有
freedom.
虽然你讲放那个烟火鞭炮啊，现在是可以放得很大很殊胜，但是那个不是修行过来的，
对呀，不是修行过来的，
那个是外在的，
外面修的。
对呀
Yeah, so I said the fireworks are
好
not something that comes from inner cultivation. It comes
Yeah.
from outside. Again, the same principle, right? That I think oftentimes in our society, what has happened is we keep seeking outside. So we look for beauty outside. We look for spiritual powers outside. We look for entertainment with fireworks outside. And what ends up happening is we end up constantly seeking, constantly feeling like we don't have enough. Whereas if we change the direction and look for beauty inside, we look for our true wisdom inside, which manifests as spiritual abilities. And if we can find a kind of, rather than looking for excitement to be okay and find fun, if we can find real happiness and fun in the very ordinary acts of service and goodness, then we find that in that way we will be truly happy.
好，我们剩下不是太多时间，我想我们还是要回到我们上个礼拜，我们还有一个18部共法没有讲，我想我们今天把它补讲，不然的话我们还是欠着，不要
Okay.
不要欠这个欠法不好，也不要欠着，所以我们今天来把它讲这个18部共法，就是上个礼拜的有包括这样子的。
So last time we talked about the 18 unshared dharmas or 18 unique dharmas of the Buddha. I think we'll see that in the previous section. Was it on page 79, 78? Yeah, the unique dharmas you'll see on page 77. It says the fearlessnesses and the unique dharmas.
Yeah.
So this is the unique dharmas. There's 18 of them, and I wanted to make sure I shared it with you because I mentioned it last time.
所以呢，他这个，因为他这个18部共法呢，它只是限于佛的18种功德法。
So this manifests the 18 merits of the Buddha.
然后呢，因为他这个佛的这个不共呢，什么是不共？就是说不共其他的二乘菩萨，所以就是讲这个不共法，不共的。
So what's not unshared, or why is it unique? Is that only the Buddha has these dharmas. Those are the two vehicles, and also the bodhisattvas do not have these 18.
所以18种呢，第一个就是身无私，他的身啊，他就是无量劫来修行戒定慧呢，他以这样子慈悲智慧来修身呢，这个功德圆满，所以这个就是第一个他的身无私。
So the first is the body, 就是身体不会做错事情，是这样子吗？
因为他无量劫来修行，用戒定慧来修行，
就是说身体就不会做错事情。
所以他的这个修身呢，所以他功德圆满啦，也就是说他没有一切的烦恼都尽了。
那我说这个意思是身无失，这个无失就是不做错事情。
就是身体没有失
什么东西？
没有烦恼啦，没有烦恼的过失啦。
Okay, so the body doesn't have any afflictions, any mistakes, it's complete. And
对
so
了，
this
你也讲
comes
过
from
失也是也做没有错，没有做，身体不会做错
yeah,
任
he
何
doesn't do
事情。
anything wrong with the body. And so the Buddha, from infinite or countless eons in the past, he cultivated precepts, samadhi, and wisdom and kindness and compassion. And in this way, he was able to cultivate his body and realize merit and virtue, complete his merit and virtue. And all his afflictions went away. So that's how he was able to realize a body that was free of all mistakes.
然后第二个是身口意嘛哈，就是口第二个口，因为他智慧辩才各方面所说的法都是有得证悟过的，所以他讲的法是没有，他讲出来的口里面讲出来没有过失。
So the Dharma, so his mouth is free of mistakes. And so the Buddha has infinite, boundless wisdom and eloquence. And so everything he says, when it comes to the Dharma, is able to accord with living beings just what they need so that they can wake up and certify to the Dharma. So this is why he's considered free of mistakes in his mouth.
然后第三个是念无私，因为佛呢，他都修很深的这个禅定，他的心不会散乱，所以在佛法诸法的这个之中呢，他心无所着，他都是非常安稳，所以叫做念无私。
So third is the mind is free of mistakes. So the Buddha has very deep dhyana samadhi. So his mind is never scattered. And so he's always able to stay in the Dharma in his mind. He never leaves it. And so this way he has, like I say, a mind that's free of mistakes.
然后第四个呢，他无意想，就是说，佛对于一切众生都是平等普度，心他没有选择，所以他没有其他的想法，都是平等的。
So the fourth is that he does not have any discriminations or kind of favorites, biases. He sees all living beings as equal and treats them all with equanimity, impartiality, and so not kind of no special treatment. So this is why he has a mind that's completely free of discrimination.
好，第五个呢，不定心呢，因为佛陀呢，他们行事作恶呢，他都是不离甚深的这个圣定，就是他的定中呢，所以他没有不定心，他的心都是定的。
So he's free of having his mind that's not in samadhi. So the Buddha is always in samadhi, in his standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. Everything he does, he doesn't leave his supreme samadhi. This is why he says it's never leave samadhi.
第六个呢，无不知己手，就是这个没有不知道要舍己为人的这个，都是了知一切法，都是都是要守掉的，所以没有不知道这个要他没有说他不守法，不守掉这个法，守法就是不要执着，
不要执着，
不要执着这个法，要舍掉。
这个什么无不知己舍，
就是
就不会忘记舍掉，是这样子。So number 6 is he never forgets to let go. So the Buddha really deeply understands the Dharma and has kind of deep penetration. And so regardless of what it is, he's always able to let it go. He understands the nature of all dharmas, and so he doesn't attach to any of them.
第七个呢，亦无昧， 因为这个佛具众生的善呢，常来度众生的这个心呢，他没有厌足，所以他这个就是说，他的这个度众生的这个心呢，他不会昧无昧，不会没有不度众生的心呐。
So seventh is that his wish to rescue living beings will never come to an end. So the Buddha is somebody who is constantly trying to rescue and help living beings. And so he doesn't have any kind of complaining or feeling like this is a burden. So that's why he never has any, he doesn't have any kind of, or you say this way, his wish to save living beings never comes to an end.
第八个呢，精进无昧，因为这个佛的身心呢，它是精进满足，常度一切众生，他没有休息，所以他是非常精进，所以他这个没有不精进的，这个就是说精进无昧。
So 18 is he's always vigorous. Vigorous never comes to an end. The Buddha is always very, very vigorous. He's able to rescue living beings, all living beings, and there doesn't rest, doesn't stop, can't take a break from saving living beings, but always saving living beings. That's why is meant by he is vigorous without end.
好，第九个是念无昧，他的这个佛三世诸佛的这个法呢，他一切的智慧呢，都是相应满足，没有退转的这个念头，所以叫做念无昧。
So number 9 is his thoughts do not come to an end. So this Buddha is the 3 periods of time. All the Buddhas are 3 periods of time. The Dharma of the Buddhas, he knows all the wisdom, Wujicits, all this different wisdom, and
都是满足的，像满足没有退转的。
So he's able to. Okay, so sorry, come back again. So the Buddha here, his thoughts do not come to an end because he's able to constantly cultivate and fulfill his, you could say his realization, Shang Ying Manzu. So he doesn't stop, he doesn't retreat. But so that's why his thoughts do not end. So he just constantly keeps moving. Maybe say this way: he's always mindful of the Dharma, doesn't retreat at all. So that's his thoughts do not cease.
好，第10个就是慧无昧。慧呢，当然就是智慧。佛的智慧呢，都是无量无边无际的，不够穷尽的，所以这个故名慧无昧。
So next one is the wisdom does not cease. The wisdom here is the Buddha just has tremendous wisdom and doesn't have any limits to this wisdom. So that's why he says that the wisdom is without cease.
好，第11个解脱无昧，因为佛远离一切的执着，他不执着，他远离了，所以这个解脱呢，有为解脱，还有无为的解脱。有为的解脱就是无漏智慧相应之解脱。那这个无为的解脱呢，就是说他一切的烦恼都尽了，他已经无余了，所以这个就是解脱无尽。
So number 11 is liberation is without cease. So the Buddha is far apart from all attachment, and it's complete in the 2 kinds of liberation. So, for instance, the first one is the liberation of the conditioned. So he's able to realize this non-outflow wisdom that leads to liberation. And the second is an unconditioned liberation. And this is all the afflictions are purified. And so this is sunjeto. So this is what leads him to have liberations that are without cease. He's truly has, truly liberated. So the unconditioned and a conditioned
反
liberation.
正都解脱了。
Everything
有
is
为无为
liberated.
都是解脱。
Everything is
Okay.
liberated, both in the conditioned sense, also in the unconditioned sense.
还有第12个呢，解脱知见无昧。这个在解脱中呢，他知见都能够明了，没有得到，没有无碍的，是他的这个知见，没有都得到这个解脱知见。
So the liberation of the vision and underseeing, insight, you could say maybe, is unceasing. So the Buddha is 一切众生中, so he missed all these liberations. He has complete vision and understanding, is able to kind of discern clearly and break through all attachments, kind of penetrating vision. This is why with miss the liberations, he has this profound understanding and vision, which is unceasing.
第13个呢，就是说一切身业随智慧行，就是佛他来调伏众生呢，他用智慧来演说一切的诸法，使人能够解脱正入。所以呢，这个就是一切身业随智慧恨。
So here he says that all the activities of the body is able to accord with the practices of wisdom. And so everything the Buddha manifests in his appearances, manifestations, is able to subdue and teach living beings. And so this is why it's wisdom. Everything he says is he's a kind of manifestation of wisdom. All the dharmas help to realize true liberation, to certify to the Dharma. So that's why you can say that it's his every action is in accordance with wisdom.
然后第14个呢，一切口业随智慧行，就是说，佛他用清净的语，随着智慧来化导一切的利益，来利益众生呢。所以呢，是名一切口业，随智慧行，就是他用口来度化众生呢，这样子的一个智慧行。
So here is that he uses his mouth, the activities of his mouth is able to accord with wisdom. So the Buddha has a very subtle and wondrous, pure words. He uses beautiful words that accords with wisdom and is able to teach and transform and lead and benefit all living beings. So this is why it says that his words, his verbal actions always accord with wisdom.
第15个呢，就是说一切的意业随智慧行了，就是佛呢，他用他的清净意业，随着这个他的智慧呢，来转给众生的心，来说法，来灭除这个众生的无明智慧这些愚痴。
So 15 is his thoughts accord with wisdom. So he's able to use his thoughts and teachings to help living beings, so that they leave behind all delusion and ignorance and have wisdom.
好，第16呢，智慧知过去世无碍，就是说，佛他当然知道众生的过去世一切，对于非众生法都能够遍知，他是无碍的，他知道众生的过去一切。
So he knows 16 that he has the wisdom to know the past lives of living beings in unobstructed. So he can just see very clearly the past lives of living beings.
然后第17个呢， 就是讲智慧，知未来事，未来，刚才讲过去、现在、未来，他佛都知道未来这个众生会怎么样子，他都非常明白，能够知道。
So the 17th is the Buddha is able to know the future very clearly without any obstruction. And so he can see the living beings' futures and without any obstruction.
第18个，最后一个啦，就是智慧知道现在事，过去、未来、现在，这个佛他都知道现在的众生他是怎么样子，的一些事情他都非常了解，所以，这个就是一个现在事无碍。那这个是出在这个我们讲这个就是出在大智度论第26。
So the 18th is that his wisdom in the present is unobstructed. He can understand all the living beings' present conditions without any obstruction. So if you want to find this list, this is in the treatise on great wisdom, 大智度论。
OK， 好，我们也讲完了第。
So I think we finished the 18 kinds of
Yeah.
unique dharmas of the Buddha.
那我想说，我们现在今天是17号嘛，刚刚过完这个元宵节，我想元宵节我知道元宵节我们是要吃汤圆的，还有提这个灯笼的，这个元宵节。
So this is the 17th of the first lunar month, and so this is the 15th of the lunar month is a special day in the Chinese calendar that you celebrate by eating these kind of
couple days ago,
round balls, and also kind of holding up lanterns.
像这个吃汤圆啊，这个就是说圆圆满满，大家幸福在一起，这个意思啦。
So the eating these round balls is symbolizing the kind of completeness and everyone in harmony.
那这个灯笼呢？灯笼就是说，也可以说，照亮外面的这个世界，也照亮我们自己的这个心，这个最重要，对我们这个佛法来讲。
So lanterns can symbolize shining light outside, but also want to illuminate within.
这个灯笼的还有人在猜这个谜啊。我想因为时间，我们也不多讲这一些。那我想我们希望说，我们今年是虎虎生风啊，是虎年啊。我们希望大家在除了新年快乐、身体健康以外呢，我们更要精进来修习佛法。我们要百尺竿头更进一步。
So I think this year is the year of the tiger. So not just do we want to have health and blessings and well-being and prosperity, but we want to really be vigorous and cultivate. And in the Dharma, on top of the 100-foot pole, we take another step.
Another step， 百尺竿头，你知道吗？
百尺竿头，对啊。On the 100-foot pole, you take one more step.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just say, right now, just take another step. And maybe let's just be very practical. Right now, can you cultivate and take another step? 我想很实际的，就是说，不要等到百尺再做一步。你现在走再一步就很好了，每一分每一秒就走再一步就很好，在修行上就是非常友好。
百尺竿头进一步到哪里去了？
虚空喽，完全都放下了。完全放下了。
十方世界了，十方世界。
完全放下了。So where do you go when you take another step off the 100-foot pole? I said you go into empty space. King Forster says you go to the 10 directions, everywhere in the 10 directions.
他这个有寄送的。
There is a verse that describes this.
百尺竿头须进步，十方世界是前身呐。
It says if you can take another step at the top of a 100-foot pole, then everywhere in the 10 directions becomes your entire body.
好，我想我们今天的讲法就
So we just
到这里
finished
时
speaking
间
there. I think you can think of that verse, if I were to kind of reflect on this. One is about true emptiness, that
Yeah.
you're able to let go completely, right? You can let go of the 100-foot pole, and this is what you've been cultivating diligently, and then finally just completely let go. And then as you completely let go, they say, 妙有, the wonderful existence comes about. Everything throughout the universe manifests.
好，那就等我们下星期四一样的，不见不散。我们再继续研究佛说无量寿经。我们下面会有更精彩的经文，因为我们进入极乐世界了，所以精彩的事情会一直出现。我们以前都是在这个极乐世界外面在那里，现在我们进入极乐世界这样子。
So now we're coming into the Pure Land, so it's even more exciting. So we'll continue next week for those who can join us. We hope you can do that.
好
Okay?
，OK，
回向功德。
好，回向功德。
May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, so that concludes our evening lecture. Hope you can join us for our daily programs at the monastery. Otherwise, wish you a good day or good evening. Amitabha.
阿弥陀佛。